It is really a thrill to interview you, and I think for many of the women in the room, you are probably a hero for many years, and it's been really exciting to see you build your business. Ellevest launched 16 months ago, and you describe yourself as a financial feminist. So what does that mean, and how did that lead you to launch Ellevest?
So financial feminist, first of all, as everyone in this room knows, money is power. The men have more money than we do. We will not be fully equal with the men until we are financially equal with the men. We have all kinds of gaps. We have pay gaps, we have funding gaps, but we also have an investing gap. And that investing gap can cost the women in this room hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars over the course of their lives. So when we talk about financial feminism, when women have money, everybody does well. Right? It's obviously great for the women, but it's great for their families, for society, for the economy. It's one of the few win-win-win-wins out there.
And so at what point did you start to hone in on this investing gap and decide that that's what you were going to do with Ellevest?
Well, the idea came to me, as many good ideas do, when I was putting on my mascara one morning. No, seriously. You know, as you know, I actually hold a world record, which I didn't want to brag about right away, but I think I can now, which is I'm the only woman to be fired on the front page of the Wall Street Journal twice. In fact, with one of them, I was sitting in my office, turned around, and there was my big face on CNBC. You know, Sallie Krawcheck out at Merrill. I'm like, oh, really? Like, shocking. That poor woman, oh, dear God, it's me. I feel so bad for her. But anyway, so a bunch of people would say to me, after that happened, you know what you should do? You should start an investing platform for women. I'd say you should jump off a cliff. That is so patronizing, you know, and so, you know, like I'm not going to be in the junior varsity. And I realized that I was just sort of channeling the patriarchy, this view that women needed something simpler, women need something less sophisticated. Women just need more financial education. We're not that good at math. We're not that good at investing. We're too risk averse. None of those things are true. None of those things are true. What is true is that Wall Street and investing was built by men for men. When you've got 86% of financial advisors male, average age 60, overwhelmingly white, by definition, they built a business that is really targeted toward men regardless of what they say. So after folks had said that to me one day, I'm putting on my mascara, I was like, son of a gun, the retirement savings crisis is a woman's crisis. We live 6 to 8 years longer than men do. 80% of us die single, and we retire with 2/3 the money of men. What can we do to fix it? Well, one thing that I could do is to try to help women to invest more.
And so there had been other platforms or other products on Wall Street that were targeted specifically to women. Why had they, or have they failed or failed
Every
to
one of
take
them.
off? Every
one of them have failed. And it's because all the big investing firms saw what I saw, which is, wait a minute, women control $6 trillion of investable assets, but most of it is in the bank. 71% of our money is in the bank. So there's a big investing gap and an investing opportunity. But what the banks did, the investing firms, and a couple other startups, is they defined the problem as a marketing problem, right? So we just need to market to women better, rather than saying, geez, you know, this product that we have, which is all about picking winners and outperforming and beating the market, right, and winning an alpha, maybe that isn't exactly what women are looking for. Right? Maybe the fact that our investing algorithms default to an average, which is fine for men, not good for women. Why? Because if women live longer. And so if it's an average of men and women, then they're not giving us enough money for retirement. So rather than looking at the product, they were just looking at the marketing, and mostly it was the marketing through the eyes of a middle-aged man, right? Like, don't buy shoes, invest in the market instead, and women did this. Or something like that.
So so your product is different. It takes into account all these other factors. Right. And how do you take into account sort of the interest in having a diverse company and investing with a sort of that perspective?
Well, this has been what's been so amazing. You know, when you start a company from dirt, you can build a modern company. right? So Wall Street today really struggles with diversity. You know, they've spent tens of millions of dollars to improve gender diversity and have gone nowhere over the past couple of decades. And when we started this company, I said, we're going to build it to look like this country. Not this country in 1952, this country today. And so, for example, 40% of our employees are people of color. Our product and engineering team is 50% women. But you know, it really matters, because what happens is our clients and potential customers increasingly look to that. They want to know who is behind, you know, particularly when they're entrusting you with their money, they want to know who is behind that. And what they still see, even for the startups, the fintech startups, they'll see 6 rows of white guys. And by the way, I love white men. I've been married to a couple of them. I think they are like stunning creatures. My husband is the whitest man. He's almost see-through. He's so white. So I think they're amazing. But when you're looking at 6 rows of them, and then you see a female who runs HR, which is fantastic, and that's it. Women increasingly are calling BS on that and are really wanting to see companies that authentically reflect who they are.
And then how do you take that into account in your investing choices or advice to your clients?
Well, we believe that diversity leads us to, you know, give more robust advice. Now, remember earlier I said those things about women aren't as good as math? That's not true. We get as good or better grades at math than the guys do. We get better grades in everything else. Women are not as good investors. That's a myth. We actually, at the hedge fund level, mutual fund level, and individual investor level, outperform men, right? We tend to be not more risk averse, which people say we are. We are risk aware. What does that mean? Before we invest, we want to understand in English, not in standard deviation, not in terms of drawdown risk, how bad can this get? And so by bringing this knowledge and these qualities to our offering, you know, we believe we're bringing a more robust offering to our clients.
Now, how important is it to educate men about this investing gap? Do you think they understand it now? And if they don't, is that a problem?
I don't know. You know, look, I adore men, but, you know, as Gloria Steinem says, you know, no group ever gave up power. We have to take power. And I'm kind of tired of waiting for the guys to get it and to give us 3% of venture capital funds, not 2%, right? To take the percent of women financial advisors from 14% to 16%. You know, we really need to do this for ourselves. And so when we raised our last round, I spent time. First, I went to Sand Hill Road, and we were talking earlier, this amazing moment where I was pitching to 16 men, which was awesome. And then the head guy, you know, sort of was telling me all about what I needed to know about client acquisition. I'm like, you know, our client acquisition costs are much lower than the industry, but thank you for that information. And you know, he was telling me about social media. I'm like, well, I have 2.4 million followers, but thank you for that. And then finally, I start to tell him that we're looking to hire financial advisors. And he begins to explain what a pain in the you-know-what they are, the economics of the business, and how it's going to change the complexion. I'm like, I ran Smith Barney and Merrill Lynch. I've run more financial advisors than anybody on the friggin' planet. And like, I couldn't figure out if he knew that, but still thought he knew more than me, or whether, in fact, he just hadn't listened to me. And at that point, I'm like, you know, I don't know. I'm going to target people who understand the mission, who are women, right, who get diversity. And so I went to Rethink Impact, which had just raised $120-something million, invest with a gender lens. I went to Mark Benioff and Salesforce because if anyone, these guys really get it. You know, forget about talking about closing the gender pay gap. He just closed it at his company. I went to Penny Pritzker at PSP Capital. So I went to a range of investors who I said, you know what? Rather than trying to sort of fight this uphill battle, I'm going to go to folks who have a demonstrated track record here. And by the way, I think this business is going to be very successful and enormous. And I want to give them the returns that are going to come from it.
Now, one thing that has been new for you is this idea of building a brand from scratch. You've run these huge businesses, but you haven't built a brand from scratch before. What's been the most surprising thing about that process?
how much fun it has been. You know, I'm a research analyst by training, and then I was a manager and a leader, and I've never thought of myself as being creative. And we have really, I think, made some headways and are winning some awards for what we're doing at Ellevest, both in social media, both in the brand, both in changing behavior. We've won sort of a series of commendations and awards. And we've done it without, I was going to say without having a CMO. We've actually had several CMOs, and none of them have worked out up until today. And so it's really come from myself, my lead designer, our head of product, our head of content, sort of coming together and speaking, I hate the word authenticity, but really talking from right here to, as we call her, Elle, and talking about, you know, what she's going through, where we are as a country today, where we are in our lives, and with a message that has really resonated around not empowerment, because the definition of empower is to be given power. And we as women do not need to be given power. We need to activate the power that we have. And so by showing her that she has this economic power and that she can increase her financial power through investing in a way that was built for her and now planning in a way that was built for her. And I have to tell you, I've worked on Wall Street for more years than I really care to share with you. And I tell people the job was thankless. As in literally thankless, like nobody ever said thank you, ever. I had lots of lots of stuff, lots of you got to do this. But what, I'm almost not going to be able to get through saying this, what has been unbelievable to me is that not a day passes where I don't get an email from somebody saying thank you for what you're doing, thank you for building this, my mother and father never talked to me about money. I didn't even know I should be investing. Thank you for letting me know this is available. Thank you for putting together the team to do it. And it's the most amazing experience I've had. Terrifying, but really amazing.
And with this whole Me Too, Time's Up movement, it's really just swept the entertainment industry, the news media, so many different industries, a little bit in finance. Do you think the fact that there's been so much public attention to Time's Up and Me Too, that it's encouraging women to think about their finances as part of that whole taking control of their lives?
Well, here's one thing I don't think we have really articulated about these movements, which is the women who have been in a position to call out a Travis at Uber or to call out a Harvey Weinstein. They weren't all financially independent by any means, but they were financially stable. And when you are financially stable, that gives you the freedom to call this stuff out, to have these conversations. I mean, the other thing that's happened, which has been so amazing, is how women have really come together about this. And so I think it is almost subconsciously bringing to the top, wait a second, money is power. Having the money certainly doesn't hurt, and it can always help. And where I think the conversation is going is that the patriarchy and the well-meaning patriarchy has given us as women a message for decades now that talking about money is crass and unattractive. And I was saying in an earlier panel, so I haven't dated in a long time, but when I used to date, you would have sex on the third date. Is that still what you do? Like, which date is it now? I don't even know. But I think it's like, but no judgment. First is fine too. No judgment. So, we perform this extremely intimate act on that date. But can you imagine if on the third date you said, hey, Joe, or hey, Susie, how much money you making? Like, there would not be a fourth date. The clothes would go back on immediately, right? And so somehow sex is not off limits, but money is. Well, guys, if we're not allowed to talk about money, how do we know how much to ask for, right? How do we know how to get a raise? How do we know how to invest? How do we even know that we're losing out? And so society has, I don't think they've meant to, but it's sort of kept us down as a result. And so I do think this Time's Up and Me Too moment is bubbling this up where money is power. Money can be autonomy. And that as we have and explore these gaps, closing these gaps is important for moving us forward and for our daughters. Because the last thing any of us want is for some of what we went through and I went through to happen to my daughter, right? You know, for my daughter to be caught in a job that she can't quit when the boss is chasing her around the desk because she doesn't have the money. For my daughter to be caught in a personal relationship that started off great and now he or she is sort of a jerk and she can't leave because she doesn't have money. But the most emotional moment I ever went through was when I was interviewing a woman for a job at Ellevest, and she started to cry. So I was asking her why she wanted the job. I'm like, well, I know I have a reputation for being tough, but this is crazy. So I'm like, why are you crying? And she said, because I want this job so badly. And I said, well, thank you. Why? And she said, because her grandmother married her grandfather at the age of 18, and she died at the age of 82, and he beat her every day of her life, and she couldn't leave because she didn't have the money. And so I know it's crass and unattractive to talk about it, but we need to, and we need to for our daughters, so none of us and none of them are ever in that situation.
Wow. So with that powerful message, what's your message to the people in the room here? Because there are a lot of VCs, a lot of investors, angels, a lot of entrepreneurs. What do you want them to think about when they're either making their investment decisions or thinking about growing their companies?
Well, look, what I would say is women are an amazing investment. An amazing investment. You've seen the research that I've seen that when you have diverse leadership teams, you've got higher returns on equity, not by a little, but by this much. Lower risk, greater long-term focus, greater innovation. You've seen the study from First Round Capital that returns on businesses, startups that have women in leadership positions versus all males, 63% better. And so women are a terrific investment. Diversity is a terrific investment. And I think we need to step up and invest in each other. And whether that is investing money if we have it or time if we have it. So when I was growing up on Wall Street, they separated us, and they made us weaker. And they separated us because we knew that if we wanted a seat at that table, there were only one or two, and if you were in a progressive company, three. And if you wanted to make it, you had to be one of the guys. And that if you were, the research is clear, if you advocated for another woman or person of color, if the white men did it, it enhanced their reputations. If we did it, it detracted from our reputations. And so I always knew the safe thing was to promote the guys, not to promote the women or the people of color. And so when we got separated, we got weak. And so I think, if we're in companies today, finding that opportunity to talk about this, because the way to get rid of it is to have the conversation about it and promote the people of difference and look to get your company looking like the world at large. And so to invest that time in each other, invest the money in each other. And I'm hopeful the guys are going to get it. I'm hopeful we're going to begin to make progress. But if we don't, ladies, we need to do this ourselves, right? And we need to have the confidence to do it ourselves.
So looking ahead, you've only launched Ellevest 16 months ago, so it's only been around for a little while, but looking ahead a year and a half from now, 3 years from now, how big or different is the company going to be?
So it's been amazing because I went from, does this make any sense, to, as we look at the numbers, we believe we're the fastest out of the chute of any of the digital investment providers. We've been growing a double-digit % month over month, and we've gone from being digital only to, we've had wealthy women who've come to us and said, we actually got sort of a nasty email from a wealthy woman who's like, this isn't fair. I want this service too. And so we've opened a tech-enabled private wealth service. And so we've gone from one offering to a few different offerings. And we're not kidding. When we say we're co-creating this with women, we are co-creating this business with women. And so we will go where you tell us to go. And we'll build the different things that you're telling us you are. And by the way, interestingly, one of the things you're telling us right now is we want the ability to invest in other women. So that's something that we're looking at so that we can have this very positive, reinforcing cycle that can be put into place. But it is, having gone from big companies, which was hard, being an entrepreneur is the hardest thing I've ever done, but certainly the most exciting and most interesting, and I hope the most impactful.
Very exciting. Well, Sallie Krawcheck, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.